The first time I realized my entire life had been a lie, I was lying weak in a hospital bed, my veins aching from the needles. Cancer was already eating me alive, but that pain was nothing compared to the moment the bank clerk looked up at me and said, "Mrs. Emily, your passbook has been emptied for years." Every year, large transfers went to a woman named Mia. My breath caught. My chest felt like it had caved in. Mia, Ethan's first love. The man I gave my youth, my loyalty, and my life to had been funneling our money to her. My hands trembled as I clutched the desk. I staggered to the land registry office for comfort, praying at least the house would be mine. But when the clerk handed me the record, I nearly collapsed. The deed, the only roof over my head, was no longer mine. Ethan had transferred it into Mia's name. When I confronted him, pale and shaking, expecting guilt, tears, maybe even denial, he stayed calm, cold. He sneered, "I already married you. What more do you want? You're just too greedy." Something inside me broke. This was the man I had loved so blindly, the man I built from nothing. I had poured all my savings into his little business until he became the first 10,000 yuan's household in our village. I had given up children because he didn't want them. And in the end, he used my savings to feed another woman and raise their child. And I couldn't even afford the treatment that might have saved my life. I died staring at the ceiling, full of regret and rage. And then, I opened my eyes again. The air smelled of smoke and wet earth. My body felt lighter, younger. Someone shoved me hard, and I stumbled, clutching something in my hand. A pen, a Shanghai brand fountain pen. I looked up. Ethan stood there, not the arrogant man in a suit I remembered, but a ragged youth in patched trousers. His lips curled in disdain. "Emily, I told you I don't like you. Stop giving me things. Don't you even know modesty? Don't cling to me like a shameless girl." It hit me like a thunderclap. The same words, the same moment. I had gone back to the very day I gave him this fountain pen, the beginning of everything. My chance to rewrite fate. He reached out to take the pen, as if entitled to it. But instead of pushing it into his palm like I once did, I slipped it into my pocket and laughed bitterly. "If you don't like it, then don't take it." For the first time, I saw the confusion flash in his eyes. He froze, his hand hanging awkwardly in the air. "You're playing hard to get?" he muttered. I sneered. "No, I just realized I don't like you anymore." I turned and walked away, feeling a strange, burning satisfaction. Behind me, his voice cracked with panic. "Emily, wait. Don't be childish." I was harsh, but I didn't mean that night. I locked the pen deep in my locker. Yet the next day, it was gone. Ethan was bold enough to steal it behind my back, then claim to the officials that I had given it to him. Shameless. Standing in front of everyone, I asked him coldly, "Ethan, what exactly is our relationship? You've rejected me countless times, yet you use everything I give you. Are you living off me?" His face went pale, then flushed red. The crowd whispered. When I demanded he return every gift, I dragged out so many things from his shabby house that even I was shocked. Without me, he was nothing, a leech dressed in borrowed dignity. That day, as I walked away with my belongings and even the chair he once stole from me, I swore I would never again let Ethan drain me. I counted what I had left. Exactly 1,000 yuan, my parents' inheritance. Enough to live quietly. But I no longer wanted quiet. I wanted power. I wanted freedom. I wanted to seize the future with my own hands. So I made a choice. I quit the factory, packed my bag, and set my eyes on the city. 6 hours away, it held opportunities I had wasted in my last life on Ethan's dreams. This time, I would use them for myself. But Ethan didn't give up. He followed me to the village movie night, sat beside me, and pushed a piece of candy into my hand. I tossed it back at him. "Comrade Ethan, stay away. It wouldn't be good if Mia misunderstood." Instead of shame, he leaned closer and whispered, "If you buy me a Phoenix bicycle, maybe I'll consider being with you." I laughed so loudly the entire crowd turned. "Earn it yourself. Stop scheming for a girl's money." His face burned with humiliation. That humiliation spread like wildfire. By the next day, villagers were demanding to see the bicycle he bragged about. He stammered excuses, hiding his cowardice behind lofty speeches. But I had no time to waste on his tricks. I boarded the weekend bus and left for the city. 6 hours later, I stepped onto crowded streets blazing with neon and ambition. And with the 1,000 yuan I had left, I rented a tiny shop and filled it with women's clothing from the port. I named it Emily's Fashion. The first day, Customers flooded in. Young women gasped at my outfits, grabbing them off racks like treasures. I worked from dawn till night, exhausted, but laughing as I counted my own money for the first time. My money, my hard work, my freedom. But just as life bloomed in my hands, a shadow fell across my door. A new store had opened across the street, cheap, flashy, nearly identical to mine. The name on the sign made my blood run cold. Mia's Boutique. And standing inside, smug as ever, was Ethan. When his eyes met mine, his lips curved in a knowing smirk. He leaned close and whispered, "Emily, you've been reborn too, haven't you?" I arrived to the sound of shouting and the clatter of hangers hitting the floor. A crowd packed the doorway of Mia's Boutique, waving dresses that reeked of chemicals. "Refunds, now," someone yelled. Ethan stumbled out, blood streaking his forehead, trying to shield Mia as she sobbed on the tiles. For a heartbeat, I just watched, my pulse steady. This wasn't luck, it was cause and effect. I had checked their fabric the night before. Thin weave, crooked seams, dye that bled onto my fingers. I knew that back alley factory would vanish. I said nothing. I didn't need to. Choices were already closing in on them like a trap they set for themselves. The only question was how hard they'd fall. That night, as the train clacked through darkness, Ethan crawled to my berth while Mia slept and pressed 2 crumpled hundreds into my palm. "I won't let you help for free," he whispered. "Take us to buy stock. We had a lifetime together. We're comrades?" I looked at the money. 10 months of wages. In my last life, I bled for him. In this one, I charged him. "Fine," I said. Once. He exhaled in relief, not seeing the line. I would not let him cross again. At the port, I moved like a clock, touch fabric, bend a seam, check a zipper, bargain, seal. They trailed me, copying everything, buying twice as much, heads full of greed. Mia filled a sack with trinkets she didn't need. Ethan sweated through his shirt and kept counting imaginary profits. I didn't bother to warn them. I wasn't their lesson anymore. Life was. When we returned, the difference wasn't in the racks. It was at the door. I stood in my entrance every morning, greeting each customer by name, offering a mirror, pairing a skirt with the right blouse, tailoring a sleeve in 10 minutes. Ethan hid in the back, clutching the ledger like a shield. Mia snapped at women who asked for exchanges. Money doesn't like contempt. It walks. The break came on a humid afternoon. Through their window I heard it. "You call yourself educated, but you can't sell a dress." Ethan barked. "Learn from Emily." Mia's face twisted. "Then go to her. Did you forget who sold her job letter to fund you? You're living off me." Her slap cracked the air. He staggered, eyes bright with rage and the old hunger. I felt nothing but distance. They were fighting for the power to use me. I had stepped out of that ring. That night Ethan came to my shop drunk, the door half open to the street's soft noise. He tried to smile like the boy I used to believe in. "I regret it," he slurred. "Mia is a shrew. You're gentle. Let's do it again. This time I'll give you everything." His hand rose toward my face. My palm met his cheek first. The sound rang clean, matching the one Mia left earlier. He blinked, then lifted his chin like a martyr. "Hit me again if it helps." I tossed water into his face. "Understand this," I said. "There is no future with you." He wouldn't move. So I called the police. He left in handcuffs, still talking about destiny. In the morning, Mia dragged him out, screaming the whole way. By week's end, the boutique sign came down and the smell of fried dough took its place. I didn't look again. I opened 2 more branches and trained my cashier into a manager. At night, my fingers ached, but the ache felt honest. Sometimes when the city quieted, a different feeling rose, lonely, not weak. That was when Mr. Chen started visiting. He was an investor who came to buy dresses for his sister, then asked about margins and flow. He studied my window displays the way I studied seams. "You see people," he said once, "not just buyers." He never pushed. He stood outside the storm and offered shelter. For a second, I wanted to step in. Then I remembered a hospital's white ceiling and a passbook with nothing in it. I smiled and told him I was building muscle alone. He nodded, not offended. "Then let me be a good supplier," he said. He was. The door stayed open, but my hands stayed on the wheel. A year later, the village chief wrote and asked if I would invest back home. I drove in with samples and a planned training, jobs, a small sewing workshop. As I stepped from the car, wedding firecrackers popped. The bride turned and I almost laughed. "Mia." The groom swallowed hard. "Ethan." I took a place at the edge of the courtyard. He tried to catch my eye. I handed the chief a red envelope and left with a nod. I didn't need to say anything. That silence was my answer. Night fell thick as ink. My room smelled of soap and fresh cotton. The kick at the door came fast. A man lurched in, eyes feral. "Little lady, what's the point of money without a man? I'll take you as a wife," he grinned, reaching. My hand found the glass by instinct. It shattered on his skull. He dropped, howling, blood slicking his hair. Neighbors pounded in, the chief behind them. Under lantern light, the man broke and spat the truth. Mia sent him. If he ruined me, he'd marry me and swallow my assets. Rage hummed in the room like a live wire. They dragged Mia in, her face pinched with spite. "Why should I apologize?" she shrieked. "How does a woman make so much money clean? She's dirty." The chief's kick sent her sprawling. Even then she glared at me like I'd stolen something she never deserved. Ethan arrived, saw the blood, saw me, and muttered apologies to the floor. I swallowed bile and kept my voice even. "Handle it by the rules," I told the chief. "My investment stands. I wouldn't let her rot me from the inside." I refused to live inside her hate. I left before dawn, the tires throwing dust like smoke. The city received me like a tide. I signed with Mr. Chen Factories, brand, contracts with clauses I read twice. I hired girls who reminded me of the one I used to be. Quick hands, wary eyes, golden hearts. We built an enterprise on fittings and fairness. I slept less but slept clean. When storms came, I stood in them and didn't drown. Time moved, so did I. New shops, new managers, new seasons of fabric. Some nights Mr. Chen and I shared tea after a late meeting, his gaze warm, safe. He never crossed a line. I didn't either. My hunger was different. It wasn't for a person. It was for air, for space with no hands on my pockets, my body, my life. To my surprise, that fed me better than love ever had. Maybe later, I told myself. Maybe when I'm not afraid that comfort is a cage. Years passed like pages turning. One afternoon the chief's nephew delivered a basket of chestnuts and village news. Ethan and Mia had been fighting for years. Plates, neighbors, police, repeat. She had lost pregnancies again and again until the doctors took her womb to save her life. Her voice had turned to knives. Ethan's ventures failed one by one. Debts stacked. He left her at home to rot. I sat very still, chest warm and hollow at the same time. In another life, that was me. Fate hadn't changed. It had shifted hosts. On the way to the airport for an overseas deal, my car stopped at an intersection with a security gate. A guttural voice cursed the guard. "What's so great about you?" In my past life I ran a listed company. The man turned and I raised the window. Ethan, dirty collar, bitter mouth, eyes still full of that old entitlement, like the world owed him a bicycle, a pen, a woman's lifetime. He was still living in his dream. I was done with mine. The plane climbed through cloud, engines humming like a promise. I closed my eyes and let my breath even out. I thought of a hospital bed, a land deed in someone else's name, a fountain pen sliding back into my pocket, a slap that freed my blood, a door I opened for myself and walked through alone. I thought of the girls in my workshops, bent over bright fabric, humming. I thought of Mr. Chen's respectful distance, the way he said your company and meant it. I thought of how no one was taking and calling it love. In the dark behind my eyelids, the old Emily looked at me. Not the girl who begged, not the wife who starved, not the widow of a living man. A woman in a seat by a window, spine straight, heart steady. I smiled at her like a sister I had finally found. "Emily," I whispered into the roar, "you're free." The words didn't feel like revenge. They felt like truth, and truth, finally, was enough.